All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Community Church. We're going to get started. You're welcome to stand and join us.
This is the day that you have made. Whatever comes, I won't complain. For all my hope is in your name, and now your joy awaits my praise. I give thanks for all you have done, and I will sing of your mercy and your love. Your love is unfailing, for I am grateful. When I was down, you brought me out. You set my feet on higher ground. So here I stand. You are my God. Your faithfulness, my solid rock. I give thanks for all you have done, and I will sing of your mercy and your love. Your love is unfailing. Lord, I am grateful. I give thanks for all you have done. I won't forget all the battles you have won. Your love is unfailing. Lord, I am grateful. Hallelujah, God, above it all. Hallelujah, God, unshakable. Hallelujah, you have done great things. You've done great things. Hallelujah, God, above it all. Hallelujah, God, unshakable. Hallelujah, you have done great things. You've done great things. Give thanks for all you have done, and I will sing of your mercy and your love. Your love is unfailing. Lord, I am grateful. I give thanks for all you have done. I won't forget all the battles you have won. Your love is unfailing. Lord, I am grateful. You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. Pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. The Lord is my shepherd, and he is everything I need. I will not worry, I will not fear the enemy. He said that he loves me, he said that he's with me, even though I walk through the valley of shadow and death, and still I know he has good plans. He has good plans for me. So I will take heart in deserts and gardens. He has good plans. He has good plans for me. Yes, I know my Father, I know my Father has good plans. The Lord is my Savior, so why should I doubt my victory? Why would I question the rod and the staff that comforts me? He quiets the waters, he quiets the storm inside of me. So what could be better than walking with him when I believe he has good plans? He has good plans for me. So I will take heart in deserts and gardens. He has good plans. He has good plans for me. Yes, I know my Father. I know my Father has good plans. Sing surely your goodness. Surely your goodness and mercy will follow after me. So fear will not find me, 'cause I'll be dwelling in the house of God. Surely your goodness and mercy will follow after me. So fear will not find me, 'cause I'll be dwelling in the house of God.
can have a seat.
Hey, my name's Allie. This is Tom.
Good morning.
Yeah, it's good to see you guys today. I just want to start by giving a little, just friendly reminder. We are 1 week away from Mother's Day. So that means you have 7 days to think of a thoughtful gift for Mom.
Yes. That was for Lou, right?
That was directly for Lou.
Well, good morning and welcome to Community Church. We're glad that you are here, especially if this is one of your first times with us. Maybe this is your first time being in our building or watching online with us. We're glad that you have joined us. Thank you for taking some time out of your Sunday morning to be with us. We want to connect with you, and there's a couple ways that you can connect with us. So if you use the form online, communitychurch.net/connect, or use the QR code that's on your screen or on the seat back in front of you, you can scan that, send you to the form, fill that out, and we'll send you a gift card in the mail. Or if you're here in person in the building, whether upstairs or downstairs, after the service, in the corner of the cafe, there's this banner that says, I'm new, and there's another one that says, I have questions. Go over there, talk to one of our hosts there, fill out a form, and we'll give you a gift just for doing that.
And if you don't know, we are actually 100% financially supported by people who give to the church, people like you and me. If you're interested in finding out more about our finances, we've actually put together some resources on our giving page. So you can visit that by going to communitychurch.net/give. There's the resources on there. That's also where you would give if you're interested in doing that.
So later today, at 6 p.m., we're having our event that we've been talking about for a couple weeks called Start Party, which is the event.
Start Party.
Wow. The enthusiasm is amazing. No, a Start Party is awesome. It's a great place to get your questions answered, to hear more about what our church is like. It's also going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be food, there's games. It's going to be a party of sorts. We hope to see you there. You can register at communitychurch.net/starts. But here's the big thing. It's happening today at 6 p.m., but today is May the 4th, which is Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. Yeah. All right.
Enjoy it, Tom. This is the last time you can make this joke.
I know. We could do anything right now, and I think they'd be excited. So we're going to have a little giveaway and a little trivia question. There's 2 questions, but Allie, why don't you show them
What are we giving away? Okay.
what you
First?
can win? All
Baby
right?
Yoda. Okay.
You can win that, dude. Or
All right. Also, hang on. You got to wait for this one a little bit. Yeah.
yes,
That's right.
a little Mace Windu action.
Yep.
Any Star Wars nerds? All right. So first person to raise their hand, be called on, give the correct answer, will win one of these 2 prizes. Here's the first question. All right. What is the name of the group that fights against the Galactic Empire?
Oh man, we have a strong.
Okay, I didn't even get to read the choices,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I don't.
who are we picking?
Yeah, right here. Yeah.
Yes. That is correct. B, the Rebel Alliance.
Wow.
Are you sure it's not Carl? E was Carl. It could have been Carl.
Oh, we have a request for Baby Yoda. All right.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. We will honor
Okay,
that.
all
the,
right.
the next question is actually about Baby Yoda, but we will honor that
All
request.
right, here's the next question. What is Baby Yoda's real name? A, Groggy. Oh my goodness.
Oh man.
B,
Okay, we have
Yogi.
another solid.
Okay. Grogu
Grogu.
is correct.
Wow.
All right,
amazing.
wow.
There you go. All right.
You know, very impressed. 11:30 crowd. You guys are with it and awake. You're caffeinated. Apparently, there's a lot of Star Wars people here. It's awesome. All right, well, transition out of that. Go right ahead.
Thank you. If you want to know more about Start Party, you can download our app by going to communitychurch.net/app. All of our events are there. More information about Start Party. Our content is on there as well. So that's a great way to stay in the know with what's going on. But that's it from us for this morning. Lou will be up here in just a minute to continue our series called Church Hurt. I will mention that if you do have kids in here with you today, there are some points of the message that do address some sensitive topics like abuse. And if you don't want them in here for that, this might be a good time for you to take them down to our kids programs downstairs. We have programs available from babies up to 5th grade. So with that, we'll hand it over to Lou.
All right, well, thanks for joining us. If this is your first time here, my name's Lou, one of the pastors here. At this point in the service, what we typically do is continue our teaching series, and that's what we're gonna do today. We're in part 2 of a series called Church Hurt, but if you weren't here last week, don't worry, this message can kind of stand on its own. So here's where we'll start, all right? If you were to read the biographies of Jesus, what we refer to as the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which is the beginning of the New Testament, what you'll see, it's pretty amazing, you'll see people with all different backgrounds, people of all different ages, people who are into religion and people who aren't. Some people who are like pushed out of the religious community, some people who are somewhere in between. People of all different shapes and sizes, they flock to Jesus and they are looking for help and hope. And they find it. And more often than not, they don't just find it, but they're surprised by the extent of his goodness. They're thrown off by just how amazing he is. And so what happens is toward the end of his career, Jesus begins to paint a picture of what it's going to look like when he's gone. He talks about this community that he's forming that's going to continue to do his work. They're going to carry on what he's been doing. And they're not going to be perfect, but the idea is that this community will be the type of community that people of all different shapes and sizes, of all different ages, with all different backgrounds, it'll be the type of community that people can flock to and find help and find hope. And maybe even like at our best, people could be surprised by the extent of our goodness. What he's talking about is the church. Like, this is his vision of the church, a place of help and hope. Anybody seen The Lion King? I know we got a lot of Star Wars fans in the room. Lion King, all right, if you haven't seen Lion King, you have had 31 years. Fun fact, a little upsetting, but it's been out for 31 years, all right? So there's this scene in The Lion King, I'm gonna spoil it if you haven't seen it. I'm sorry, it's been a while. There's a scene with Mufasa, right, who is the Lion King. There's a stampede, and he saves the life of his son, Simba. He throws him out of the stampede, but then he's sucked back into it, and he's just hit by one animal after the next, and it's not looking good for him. It's looking like things are gonna end pretty badly, and he flings himself. In a state of desperation, he flings himself onto the side of this cliff, and he begins to climb, and he looks up, and he sees his brother. And the look in his eyes, he's looking for help. He's looking for hope. And at that point in the movie, you already have the vibe that his brother, Scar, is the bad guy in the movie, and he is. But he looks for help, he looks for hope, and he doesn't find it. Instead, he gets hurt. That's the end of Mufasa's story right there. And I don't need to tell you that that's been the story for some people in church, right? You're beat up by life. It's one thing after the next. It could be a diagnosis. It could be parenting, it could be your professional life, it could be a divorce, your relational life, like all these different things. And sometimes it feels like it's one after the next, after the next, after the next. And maybe for you or someone you know and love, like they in a state of desperation, threw themselves in the direction of the church, looking for help and hope, only to get hurt. Last week we talked about shame in the church, how all of us, to some extent or another, struggle with shame, this feeling of not measuring up, of not being enough, and how sometimes we can walk into church with our shame, and the church, rather than alleviating it, the church can add to it, can make it like even worse. Or maybe for you, your story isn't shame. Maybe you showed up and got hurt by something else. Maybe you were betrayed. Maybe you were shunned. Maybe you were manipulated or pushed out or overlooked or considered second class or whatever. You went looking for help and hope and got hurt. It's a reality of the church, not just today, but it's in church history as well. And we can talk about it. Church hurt. We can talk about it like it's out there somewhere, like theoretically. But the reality is that the potential for church hurt is not just out there, it's in here. Wherever there's people with issues, with imperfections, with problems, with brokenness, there's potential for things to go wrong. And so for us, what we said last week is that like what's going to determine whether or not we're healthy as a church, as a community, is going to be like, do we have the skills and the tools to identify church hurt when we see it, dysfunction, when we see it? And are we willing, do we have the courage to address it? Or we could say that church health requires identifying and addressing church hurt. Identifying and addressing it. And so what I want to do today in the time that we have left is give some language, some practical, imperfect, but practical language around different types, different levels of church hurt. And my hope is that if you're someone who's new to church, or if you like wrote church off a long time ago, you're just here doing somebody a favor, my hope is that maybe you'll be able to identify where you've been on the receiving end of church hurt. But if you're someone who follows Jesus, if you consider yourself part of the church, a Jesus follower, then I think it's important not just that we're trying to look at where we've received church hurt or hurt from the church, but where we've been on the giving side of church hurt as well. And so I'm going to go through 4 levels, 4 different types of wounds. And these, like I said, they're not perfect, but I do think they're helpful. I didn't make them up. There's a pastor that I look up to that shared these with me, and I think they'll be good for us as a community. So the first level of church hurt is what we call tough love. Tough love. Tough love is uncomfortable. It stings. It can be painful at times. But this is good and necessary. It's love. It's love. Like, there is a difference between being nice and being loving, right? And as followers of Jesus, if you're a follower of Jesus, we're invited to not just be nice, but to be loving, right? And to sometimes say the hard thing. Solomon was known as the wisest man ever when he was around. And here's what he said about wounds from a friend. He said, wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. In other translations, it says, faithful are the wounds from a friend. The idea is that somebody who doesn't care about you, like you're an enemy in this situation, they're just gonna say what's convenient for them. And it might be kisses, it might make you feel really good. But someone who genuinely cares about you, they're gonna tell you the truth. They're gonna challenge you, right? A good friend's gonna tell you when you have a booger in your nose because they care about you, right? They're looking out for you. Now, I'm not talking about shaming. I'm not talking about condemning. I'm not talking about going around and just pointing out everybody's flaws. I'm talking about challenging someone in a healthy way. Jesus did this, and he tweaked his approach to his audience. He did it at the right time, in the right place, for the right reason. He did it well. And he talked about how to do this. We've done entire series around how to have healthy confrontation. And there's a place for that. It's good and healthy to challenge someone that you love. The tricky thing about this is that we live in a, like, you do you, mind your own business type of culture. It's a value in our culture, you know? Right? Anyone ever hear the expression, if your friend was gonna jump off a bridge? Right? Anyone's parents ever say that to them? Right, what do you say? Like, if your friend was gonna jump off a bridge, it's like, would you jump off a bridge? Right? Like, what if in the church the expression was, if your friend was gonna jump off a bridge, wouldn't you stop them? Right? Like, this is the idea. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. And so I hope, as we're thinking about giving and receiving here, I hope that you've been on the giving side of some tough love. I hope that you've also been on the receiving side and that you actively communicate that you're willing to receive tough love, because we live in a mind your own business culture. There are people in my life who know that they have permission to come tell me when something's up. They know it, and they are a gift to me, and I never want to hear it, but it's always helpful. Tom, who was just up here, if you don't know Tom, he's the May the 4th Star Wars guy. I'm so excited for it to be May 5th. I'm sorry, Tom. Yeah, we had a staff meeting a couple weeks ago, and more than a couple weeks ago at this point, but I'm going through the list. I'm just not in the mood. It's Monday. I'm like, okay, we got to do this, whatever. I'm talking to everybody. After the meeting, Tom comes up to me, and he's like, in a very caring way, he's like, hey, your brow was furrowed during that entire meeting. And what he's telling me is like, you have an attitude, and we can all feel it. Right? And I want to know that. And I didn't want to hear that at the moment, like at that time, but he's absolutely right. And he's helping me be a better leader. It's a gift. It's a gift. Years ago, I was part of this student group. I was running this student program at another church, and there was a volunteer who had grown up in that church and who had been part of that leadership team for years and years. And as months passed, I noticed he began to get more and more irritable. He had like a problem more often with the things that we were doing. As time passed, it was like he didn't like this, he didn't like that. Got to the point where meetings felt a little bit different when he was in the room. And so I talked to him, I'd check in on him, but eventually I got to the point where I pulled him aside and I was like, hey man, I don't want to do this. This is uncomfortable for me, but I think you need to step off of the team and take care of your soul. And he didn't like it. He didn't want to hear it. But he came up to me several months later, and he said, hey man, when you did that, I was not happy, but it caused me to really think about the direction my life was headed. He said, I started going to a therapist right after that meeting. He said, I'm not kidding, that conversation may have saved my life. And I left that initial conversation thinking like, that felt gross. I didn't like that. He didn't like it. I didn't like it. Who does this help? But this is the idea. Wounds from a friend can be trusted. So tough love, it's important to recognize that that may be uncomfortable, but it is a good thing. It's a gift. The second thing, the second level we're talking about is simply it's frustration. Frustration. Now, frustration is not good, but it is the reality of something that is good, which is community, right? If you look at the way the Apostle Paul talked about church, he described church as not like a show you come in and just sit through, but as literally a family. He refers to other people as brothers and sisters. Family experiences are like church experiences. Church experiences are like family experiences. If you have any part of any kind of family, you know we frustrate the heck out of each other. And it's uncomfortable. And sometimes it's minor, sometimes it's like, it's offensive, sometimes it's annoying, and sometimes it stings. And so what do you do with the frustration, right? You call it what it is, you talk about it, or sometimes you just let it go, right? But it's the reality of a family, and that is a good thing. Like my wife, she loves to be close and to cuddle. She also loves to like eat cereal. And so sometimes we'll be watching a TV. I can't handle loud chewing. And she'll just come like right next to me like, hey, and I'm sitting there like, you know, and sometimes I'm like, okay, I can't anymore, you know, like I just can't. And other times I'm like, I just gotta let it go. And I do things like that to her. It's like you talk it out, you let it go. That's the reality of family. And this is gonna happen in church. It's gonna happen in church. The Apostle Paul, I think he puts it perfectly, okay? This is insanely practical. He's writing to a church in Ephesus, and he's explaining he says, live a life that's worthy of the calling you've received. In other words, he's saying, live a life that's as good as what you say you believe. And here's what he says. He starts off, he says, be completely humble, like don't think too strongly of what you got going on, and gentle, be patient, and this is wonderful. He says, bearing with one another in love. The phrase bearing with one another, it can be translated literally, put up with one another. Just do it. Like, you're gonna step on each other's toes. Put up with one another. And here's why. He says, make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. Put up with one another because it's worth it for one another. And so sometimes you talk it out, sometimes you let it go. Frustration, here's what frustration can look like, right? Maybe there's someone in your little friend group that just dominates the conversation, right? And maybe like some days you can handle it, some days you can't. So you let it go or you talk it out, right? That's frustrating. Maybe there's somebody who doesn't reply to text messages. That's me. I just don't. I'm sorry, I have a problem. But that could be like, is he ignoring me? Or maybe did they forget? Like, that's uncomfortable. It's not fun. Maybe it's a little more intense than that. Maybe somebody leaves your community group and it's like, what's their problem? Maybe you talk that out. Maybe you let it go. Maybe they wanted to connect with other people. That can be frustrating. It could hurt. It could sting. But it's a reality of community. Maybe you're on the team and you don't get scheduled the way you wanted to. Maybe you don't get the position that you wanted, and that stinks, and someone else got it, and it's not fun, and it's not fair, and it could be hurtful. It could be taken personally, but it's a frustration. It's a reality of living in a community. Maybe you feel unappreciated. Maybe someone forgets your name. If you're here long enough, I promise you, I will frustrate you. Some of you are like, we're already there, and we've been there. I will frustrate you, especially as the church has grown, and we're adjusting a lot. We're trying to figure things out, and there may be some real practical things. Like maybe something happens and you end up in the hospital, and you want someone to come visit you. And a member of our care team, someone who cares just as much for you, shows up to care for you. But you're expecting Tom or Allie or me, and that could be hard. But that's something that maybe it's a frustration that requires a conversation that could clarify expectations. And when you see how many hospital visits we have, like during a week, it might make a little bit more sense. And so sometimes you let it go, sometimes you talk about it. But it's a frustration. And it's important that we have language for that. And it comes from a relationship that we can celebrate. So giving, receiving, frustration. Is there something going on right now that you're like, maybe it hurts, and you're like, this is, but really it's the reality of the community that you're in, and maybe you could talk it out and should. Maybe you should just let it go. The next one, now, it's important that we classify these two, right? This first one is good and necessary. The second one is not good, but points to a good thing. It's important that we have these two categories because the next two categories, the things in the next two categories cannot be confused with things in these first two categories. The next category is broad. It's the widest category. We're just calling it pain. Pain. What I mean by that, I'm talking about pain with one another in community. Pain meaning something broke and it needs to be fixed. Something was taken and it needs to be restored. Maybe someone broke your trust. Maybe somebody did something that offended you and they meant it. They wanted to. There was harmful intent. Maybe someone betrayed your confidence. Maybe someone condemned you. Maybe you shared something personal and it was used against you. This is real pain. This is not good. It's harmful and it requires repair. It requires repair. Now, the easy thing to do is to run away from it, to just write people off and say, I'm done. That's the easy thing to do, but it's not the healthy thing to do. You know, if you talk to my wife, Allie, ask her to show you her pinky finger. It's bent, and it always will be. She can't straighten it out. She broke her finger years ago, and she didn't get it set, and so now she can't straighten it out. She can't drink tea like a fancy person, you know. But it's because it didn't heal right. Because she didn't do what was necessary to help it heal. I've got scars all over my body. I got a scar on my wrist. I got a scar on my face. I've got just scars. Why? I hate stitches. I get cuts, and I'm just like, all right, I'll tape it, just hold it shut long enough, just leave it. I know I'm not recommending that. It's not smart, but it leaves a scar every time. Why? Because it's inconvenient and uncomfortable to make sure it heals right. But I'm covered in scars, right? And the same is gonna be true of our relationships. Our relationships will have all sorts of fingers that don't straighten out, all sorts of parts that don't work right, all sorts of scars that could have healed right, but unless we do the hard thing and reconcile, restore what's been taken, fix what's been broken. Here's how Jesus talks about this, and we spent a whole week talking about this in our Hot Mess series. He says in Matthew chapter 18, he says, if your brother or sister, family language, brother or sister sins, other translations say sin against you, meaning they do something toxic to you or the relationship. Go, he says, go and point out their fault just between the two of you. Like, address it. If they do something to you, go tell them, inform them. And then he gives some steps, like some things you could do if that doesn't work. But step one is to go to them. In Matthew chapter 5, he addresses this, but from a different angle. He says, if you're offering your gift at an altar, right, you're in the place of religious celebration, and there you remember your brother or sister, family language, has something against you, leave your gift in front of the altar. He says, first go and be reconciled. Fix what broke. Then come and offer your gift. In other words, someone's got an issue with you, go. Or you got an issue with someone else, go. It matters too much. There's gonna be pain. We're going to hurt each other. But people are worth difficult conversations. You may find out the intention was not what you thought it was. Or maybe it is just as bad as you thought, but there's a way forward. There's a way back. It's a story of redemption and forgiveness. But it requires having a difficult conversation, owning it when you're wrong, confessing, addressing, confronting, forgiving. And so pain. Have you been on the receiving end of pain? I've been on the receiving end of pain. I've had my trust broken. I've hurt people. I've had people hurt me. Have you been on the giving side of pain? Is there something you've done to somebody that's hurt them and like things aren't the same anymore? Is there a scar that's starting to form? I've been on the giving side of pain. A few months ago, I had two staff members at the same time confront me. It was on a Sunday, we were at the 8:30 service, and I made an announcement. I was like, hey, we're gonna do this and this. I communicated it to the room. I didn't communicate it to my team. They didn't know. And what I had done in the moment, it was create a logistical nightmare for them. And so right after the service, they came up to me and they were like, hey, do you realize what you just did? And I didn't wanna hear it. I wasn't in the mood. And I just basically said like, hey, it was a good thing. Like what's happening is a good thing. And so in essence, I was like, sorry, you just gotta deal with it. I didn't wanna hear it. And what's even worse is in that moment, like that weekend, I had gotten some bad news personally. Something happened in my life personally, I found out about, and it was upsetting. And I shared that with them in that moment. And I was like, you wanna know what happened to me? This is what's going on in my life right now, so give me a break. And that was the end of the conversation. And you know what broke in that moment? It was taken from them. The confidence they had that I cared about what it was like to work here. The belief that I had their back. Like the comfort or the confidence to know that they can come tell me when something goes wrong. It was broke. I took it from them in an instant. Thankfully, like not too much time passed before the next service. I pulled them aside and just recognized like how inappropriate that response was. How not communicating with them was a bad leadership decision. Bringing in my personal story was emotionally manipulative to excuse what I had done. And it's not fun, but there's something that heals there. Pain. It's gonna happen. It requires addressing and confessing, confronting, forgiving, but it's worth it. The last category we're talking about, the last level of pain, is the most destructive. It's abuse. Abuse. When I say abuse, I'm talking about abuse from people in positions of authority. from people in positions like mine. When authority that's given to protect is used to harm. When leadership is given for the good of people is used for the good of the leader at the expense of people. For some of you, this is your story. This is why you shut the door on church. It's never okay. It's not supposed to be this way. Jesus reserved his harshest words for people in positions like mine who do things like that. In Matthew's gospel, there's an entire chapter where he talks about it. In some of the other gospels, it comes up over and over and over again, but there was corruption in the religious leadership then. There's corruption in religious leadership today. But in essence, his problem with them was that they were using the authority he had for their benefit, not for the benefit of the people that they're supposed to be serving. He's like, you love the titles, you love the seats, you love the attention. And yet he's like, you're like whitewashed tombs. You're nice on the outside, but on the inside, your motives are all out of whack. He says, you hypocrites. You hypocrites. Woe to you, he says, teachers of the law, that's a title, and Pharisees, it's another title for religious leadership. He says, you hypocrites, you shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. Now, he's not saying because of your bad leadership, people don't get to go to heaven. What he's saying, we've talked about this over the past couple weeks, right? He's like, there is a way of life where you can live with God as king, and you live by the values of heaven, the way you were made to, life that's good and abundant. And he's like, there are people that want that. They want in on that, and they come to you for it, and it's like you slam the door in their face because of the way you've chosen to handle your authority. He reserves his harshest words for abuse of authority. When people in positions like mine use their beliefs or their platform or the knowledge that they have to pressure people to do things that help them, that are convenient for them, that serve their agenda, sometimes in ways that are violent, sometimes in ways that are sexual. And Jesus reserves his harshest words for people like me who do things like that. It's never okay, and it's not supposed to be this way. And if something like that happened to you, you know it feels like the door was slammed in your face. This is what he's talking about. And so I'm going to give you some examples of pain and abuse from people in positions of spiritual authority, church leadership. I'm not going to distinguish between pain or abuse. These are not clinical terms. I'm not a clinician. And the last thing I want to do is wrongfully classify the pain that you've experienced. But here's some real stories from real people. Maybe you were dismissed because of what your family looks like. You were pushed out because you didn't look like everyone else. You were shunned and shamed for being honest about how you feel. You were told your physical illness or your mental illness was really just a problem with your faith. You were told that the trauma that you experienced was part of God's plan for your life. Maybe you were told that your standing with God was dependent on how much money you gave. Maybe you were burnt out, tired of serving, volunteering, exhausted, and told to keep doing it because you're serving God and you should be happy about it. Maybe you shared your story in confidence and it was used against you. Maybe you were honest and you were outed, not on your terms. Maybe you were told that your loved ones were going to hell because of something you did or didn't do. Maybe you went to the church in a time of crisis because you needed help, and you were given a bill for money you hadn't given. It was never supposed to be this way. It was never okay. Maybe you're treated as a second-class citizen because you're a woman. Maybe you were sexually abused. Maybe someone used their position to harm you, and when you had the courage to speak up, you were silenced, and you watched as it was all covered up. It's not okay. It was never supposed to be this way. You went to the church for hope, for help, and instead you got hurt. If that's your story, I'm sorry. It was never supposed to be this way. It is never okay. And if you're watching, or if you're in the room after having gone through something like that, I think you're braver than most of us here. Braver than I am. So what do we do? I think if you're a follower of Jesus, and the church for you is a place of acceptance and belonging and connection. It's a place of growth and safety and encouragement and inspiration. I think it's important to adopt a posture of compassion and understanding. To know that for some people in your life whose story you may not be aware of, the church and people in it can represent the exact opposite of what you feel. You may be thinking they don't want to come because it's not fun, and they're thinking, I don't want to come because it's not safe. It's important to understand that. There's a series, it's allegorical, metaphorical, it's called The Chronicles of Narnia. It's written by C.S. Lewis, and in that series, there are all these characters and realities that C.S. Lewis uses to try to explain what Jesus is like, these spiritual lessons. And there's a character in the story, his name's Aslan. He's a lion, and he represents Jesus, and he's the self-sacrificing hero. People go to him for hope and help, and they find it, and they're surprised by his goodness. And in the last story, there's the bad guy in the story finds lion skin, and he takes the lion skin, and he puts it on a donkey to try to make him look like Aslan. And then he begins to rule and tell people what to do because he says, Aslan said so. He tells people what this donkey's telling him, and he's a tyrant. He manipulates, he hurts, he's got an agenda, he's horrible, he's evil. And then the good guys in the story find out about what's going on. They hear about what Aslan's doing in this like distant part of the land, and so they're like, that doesn't sound like Aslan. They travel and they go find him, and they see, they're like, oh, it was a fake. Like, look, it's a donkey wearing a lion skin. They're like, all we got to do is take care of this guy, and that's it, problem solved. And they do. They get him, and that's the end of this guy with the lion skin. And I'm thinking, I'm only halfway through the book. What else is going to happen? The good guy got the bad guy. Well, they go tell the people, and they're like, look, he's a fake. This is a lion skin. He's not real. You're free. And they announce it to the people, and they're thrilled. And then they're like, the real Aslan, and I'm paraphrasing here. They're like, the real Aslan, he's like, and all the people are like, no. We don't want anything to do with anything Aslan. We're done. And when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's the story. That's what I would do. If I showed up to a church looking for help and got slammed, I'd be done. If that's your story, you're courageous for being here. It was never supposed to be this way. And it's never okay. And so if you've been through some pain in the church, we wanted to offer some practical ways to help. We have some people, part of our care team, that will listen. If you want someone to share your story with, to process your pain with, they'll listen. We've spoken to them. They knew we were going to talk about this. They've cleared room on their schedule. It could be on Zoom. It could be on person. But if you need someone to listen to your story, you can text the word HURT to 631-600-7880. If you've experienced pain in the church and you need someone to listen, we have men and we have women who will sit and listen with you. And they may not fix the problem, but they'll listen. But if you're someone who has experienced abuse from people in positions of authority, from people in positions of church leadership, then I'm assuming the last person you'd want to process this with is someone in a position of church leadership. And so if you text this number and you select the second, I just select option 2, we'll set you up with a professional counselor, someone who has the skills, the training to walk people through traumatic experiences in church from people in positions of church leadership. And we'll reimburse you for the first 3 visits. Not because we have a lot of money, but because as the church, we need to take responsibility for the hurt that the church has caused and take steps in the direction of healing. The last thing I want to leave you with, and then the band's going to come up here. If you want to remain anonymous and you'd like to speak with a counselor, we won't be able to reimburse you, but you can go to communitychurch.net/resources, and you can see a list of counselors that we would recommend. It can stay between you and them. The last thing that I want to leave you with, if you've been through something traumatic or painful in the church, if you're not ready to embrace church, I get that. If you're not ready to embrace Christians, I get that. But what I would challenge you to do, in spite of that, is to embrace Jesus. Even if you're not ready to embrace church or Christians, to embrace the one who will never shame you, who will never push you out because of your story or your current situation, who invites us to come with our burdens, our struggles, our doubts, our pain, the one we can go to in search of help and hope and find it. And maybe even be surprised by his goodness. Let's pray. God, we're grateful that you embrace us as we are, that you are infinitely better than what we can wrap our minds around, that your love for us is not dependent on our current circumstances or struggle or whatever it may be. And so God, would you show us what it looks like to embrace Jesus in our pain? Show us what it looks like to accept his invitation to come weary and burdened in search of hope. And would you meet us where we are, as you've done so many times before for so many people before us? Would you heal our broken hearts? Would you show us your goodness and grace? Make yourself real to us so that we might find the hope that we're looking for. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Typically, we invite you to stand and sing the last song together, but due to the topic of this message, you're welcome to stay seated and take it in.
If you're troubled, heavy-hearted, come to Jesus and find your peace. If you're run down, empty-handed, come to Jesus and find your strength. He is hope for the hopeless, rest for the weary, help for the hurting. He is mending the broken, bearing the burden, all that you're needing. If you're wandering in the darkness, come to Jesus and find your way. If you want freedom and need forgiveness, just come to Jesus and find His grace. He is hope for the hopeless, rest for the weary, help for the hurting. He is mending the broken, bearing the burdens, all that you're needing. Comforter, counselor, Prince of Peace, author and maker of everything, defender, deliverer, King of Kings. He is helper and healer forevermore, Savior and shelter through every storm, my refuge, Redeemer, and Lord of Lords. He is child of heaven and Son of Man, provider, protector, the great I am, Alpha, Omega, beginning and end. He is hope for the hopeless, rest for the weary, help for the hurting. He is mending the broken, bearing the burdens, all that you're needing. He is all that you're needing. He is. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful day. Hope to see you at Start Party. Bye-bye.